Hello and welcome to a special presentation from In the Money Media and Santa Anita. This is our Big Cap Day Pick Six live stream, rescheduled live stream. We were originally supposed to do this last night. The races were originally supposed to be Saturday, but because of this crazy weather that's going on in Southern California, not sure what's going on out there, the racing is now going to be on Sunday. And that means there's a few very meaningful changes, and we'll start the show talking about those. So originally, the Ultimate Betting Challenge scheduled for Saturday was meant to be Gulfstream and Santa Anita. That's going ahead, but it's now just going to be Gulfstream. Meanwhile, there's been a new pop-up contest, a hot shot contest, if you will, for Santa Anita Sunday, a big cap challenge. I think it's $1,500 to enter that one. That's going to be just Sunday at Santa Anita. Look, I mean, obviously, it would have been better to do it as planned, but this is a really cool thing they're doing, trying to give an opportunity for the Southern California players to have their own tournament and an opportunity for those generalists out there to play twice and win cash and Breeders' Cup Betting Challenge seats and NHC seats twice in the same weekend. To learn more about it, expressbet.com/tournaments is the place that you want to go. Reach out to me on social media at Looms Boldly. If you have any further questions, I'll point you in the right direction. Another little wrinkle as I do my filibuster, as we allow people to join us during the show. Another little wrinkle with Santa Anita moving to Sunday, there is a Preakness future wager this weekend. It was originally, well, it is still going to close Saturday at 8, but that means the San Felipe, a race we're going to be talking about a little bit later in the show, will be run after the future bet closes. Some people would say, well, that's crazy. I say, no. It's an opportunity. Now, if you like Nysos as a horse with a future, instead of taking 1-5 on him in the San Felipe on Sunday, maybe you bet him in the future pool and hope he goes off, 3-1 or something. I think the math will be in your favor. Anyway, we'll talk more about that as we go, but do check out the Preakness future wager this weekend. Wherever you play, go ahead and look at the drop down. There should be a special one for the Preakness future wager, especially ExpressBet and First.com. Peter Thomas Fornatow back with you in the Brooklyn bunker once again. Very happy to be joined by two men I always love to talk about when it comes to California racing. We'll start with the man. The roles were reversed last weekend when he hosted me. Now the universe is back as it belongs. I'm in the bunker here in Brooklyn. He's still out there in Southern California. We had a whole gag when he had to pinch hit for Tom Quigley at the last minute last weekend that he had him tied up under his desk. And it was a king of comedy situation. Hopefully TQ is back out safe and no law enforcement people are after Jeff Chappy Chapman. Chappy, how are things?
I'm good. Yeah, they pulled me out of the bullpen at the last second, and it was so fun to have the roles reversed with you and I. We had a few laughs, that's for sure, but it was very enjoyable, and it was good to see you out on the West Coast.
It was great. Always the Logan suite and getting to see our other guest in the other suites upstairs. That was fun. The handicapping started off slow, but I think we picked up as the day went along. And I feel like if I didn't cover myself in glory, at least didn't disgrace myself. Always important when you're on television. The man we speak of, who we got to hang out with in the suites on, it was last Friday, a week ago today at Santa Anita, one of the most popular guests that we've ever had on these airwaves. He's a professional horse player, and his opinion is always worth listening to. He's Duke Matties. Duke, how are things?
Hey, Pete, everything's good. I don't know what they're talking about rain. I got sunny skies here in California right now, so I don't know what everybody's worried about rain.
How many miles? You're not that far. What are you, 50 miles, 30 miles from Santa Anita?
Yeah, about 50 miles from Santa Anita. I mean, the rain says it's coming, but I don't know. We'll see for sure. But I don't know. We'll see what happens. But we've had a lot of rain, but right now all things are good here.
Chappy, we know you have to get up early. What's that?
I was going to say, before we get started, Duke, are you a new Hall of Famer?
Duke, yes, are we allowed to talk about that?
I was inducted into the Hall of Fame, the NHC Hall of Fame. Yes, I was.
Fantastic. That's great news. I wasn't sure if it was official yet or not. I sort of let that slip on the show the other day, and then I realized I hadn't seen a press release yet. But that is the proper way to introduce you now as Hall of Famer, Duke Matties. Chappy, I know you got to wake up at 5:30 on Saturday morning, so this question isn't relevant for you. But, Duke, what's in your glass?
I'm doing a little Chardonnay today.
Nice, nice. The cake bread, or are you spreading your wings far and wide?
I think this is not cake bread. This is Gurgich Hills, I think.
Oh, I love Gurgich Hills. That's a great winery. Had some contact with Violet, the daughter from the house there years ago, in a wine book I worked on. I mean, we're talking back in the day at this point, but yeah, that's a solid solid thing to have pouring as we do the show. 5 o'clock your time, 8 o'clock my time on a Friday night. Let's dive in to the meat. Let's get into this stuff, boys. We're going to talk about the pick six. Unless, Duke, I will throw this open to you. Did you have anything on this Sunday Santa Anita card in the first 4 races that we'd be remiss in not having you speak about, or should we just kick things off with the 5th?
I didn't look that closely. I think there was a horse in the first race, I think, that I had on some kind of list. Asada Fries, got a good name too, so people can't forget that one. I think he's a 5 horse in race 1. I think he got a pretty rough trip last time. So that
very much so.
One horse that I would definitely want to talk about, give the people. I didn't go through them that closely, but I'll do it real quick.
Yeah, take a quick look. I do love that name, Asada Fries. That reminds me of the place in, I don't know if that's a specific reference to that place that Michelle Yu loves in San Diego. I want to say it's like Rudy's, which is like a Mexican place that does these amazing burritos that have the fries inside. I think they might call them Asada Fries. I wonder if it's a reference.
In Monrovia there, right? Old Town.
Yes. Yeah. I think that's what it's called. Michelle will be mad at me if I get it wrong, but maybe somebody in the chat can correct us here as well. I know we have plenty of San Diegans signed on listening. It's an interesting, it's a bit of a mixed bag in the early card. You've got, there's that maiden for elders in race 3. You've got some more bread and butter starter allowance and claiming stuff as well before we get into the pick 6. Once we get to the pick 6, we've got a couple of high quality allowance races, and the rest of them are all stakes. Did you see anything early, Duke, worth mentioning, or should we pivot to this pick 6?
Just that one horse. I don't have anything else that's sticking out. Are we sure we're going to be on the turf here early? That's the one problem,
That's a good question. Chappy, what are you hearing about that? I mean, I assume they're going to do everything they can to make that happen with the reschedule, but obviously if they get a little bit more rain than expected, what's interesting is, though, they did bother to draw, Duke, after they decided to move it. So I'd like to think that there's at least a good chance we're going to be on the turf, but you don't know until you know. What do you know, Chapman?
Yeah, that's all I know. I mean, they're certainly badly want to stay on the turf. So, it just depends how much rain we get tomorrow. It kind of fluctuates. It's going to rain quite a bit during the day, but it doesn't look like at this point we've gotten a lot of heavy rain, haven't we, Duke, this month? It doesn't look like it's heavy rain tomorrow.
Yeah, it looks like a steady rain, but not heavy. They're only talking about half an inch total, so I don't think.
Let's talk about this first race of the pick 6. We've got an allowance going a mile on the turf and a field of 9 going postward. Let's bring in the Hall of Famer first to give his opinion on this one. How do you want to light this candle, Duke?
Hall of Famer likes chalk in this race, unfortunately.
It happens.
I think Crosby Beach is going to be tough to beat. Mark Glatt, I think he's 60% running first or second, for the meet. 30-some% winners, and this horse just looks like it fits perfectly with the Tory. Just going to sit just behind the speed and pounce on him, and looks like he's going to be very tough to beat. And I think there's plenty of speed, ahead of him with the likes of Genius Jimmy. He should set a decent pace for sure. So I think he'll get a little bit to run at. And I think the only other horse I think that could upset maybe would be Kerry Gold. Kerry Gold is an interesting Peter Miller horse that he took over, that's run only once on the turf since he took it over and won. And then he ran twice on the dirt, and I have him against the track both times. So going back to the turf, he would be my second choice. Kerry Gold, number 3.
Let's talk about Crosby Beach for another minute, just in terms of the Dettori factor. Obviously, Dettori riding so much out there over the last 2 years in the wintertime. A rider you were familiar with, clearly, for a very long time, given how closely you follow racing. How important of a jockey change is Dettori to you generally? How impressed are you with him? Is he worth something? I mean, you're a guy who's really about form and figures, but is Dettori good enough that you notice when he gets on a horse for the first time, like with Crosby Beach?
I tell you, one place where I do pay attention very closely to that is in the down the hill races, because the Tory, he understands that you have to move your horse into position early in that race, where a lot of the guys, they just think they can come out and they can just let the horse loaf along, and he does the exact opposite. Even if he breaks a hair slow, you'll notice he'll niggle at the horse to get the horse up into position, and by the time he hits that corner, almost every time he's where he wants to be, and nobody else seems to be able to do that consistently. I think back in the day, I think there was a couple of guys that were really good at it, like Delahousse and Pinkai, but nobody really sticks out when it comes to that down the hill course like he does, and he's got an amazing record on it so far this year.
P-Val, another one I think of when you talk about that, Duke, as somebody who always got a little bit more speed out of a horse than you would think that they would on paper, including the downhill for those of us who go a few years back. Chappy, let's bring you in to talk about this fifth race at Santa Anita. Are we circling around the correct numbers when we talk about the 5 and the 3, or do you want to bring some others into the mix?
I'm going to bring a couple more in. And it's funny, Pete, you and I talked about that exact thing last week. About Dettori, especially, we did talk specifically about him down the hill, and we also we talked about. It surprised me when he first came here how, and Duke had mentioned, he's much more aggressive than I had expected, and sometimes he'll even take a deep closer and he'll be on the lead. I mean, and like Duke said, the good guys, they just judge pace, they know what to do, but he's exceptional down the hill and much more aggressive than I had realized.
I think it's a good observation, and I think he has that rep overseas as well. And for me, he's definitely worth. I'll always know when it's first time him. I'll try to take a little bit extra notice for sure. So, who do you like in this fifth, Chappy?
Okay, I'm going to add just a couple horses to Duke's list. The 8 Truly Quality. This horse just absolutely added the blinkers last time, was still far back, but just gobbled up ground late and flew home. And I like the turn of foot. That was on a good turf, which I'm assuming we will get again. So I think that's a must use. And Mike Smith has been riding better lately. He's been riding well.
He's actually one of you, I guess.
Yes, yes.
He's been in a big slump.
Yeah. And he's kind of gotten back on the beam here as of late. And then a big price that I'm going to use, because I do think there is some speed in here, is another deep closer, is the 2 Living Life. The 2 times this horse has ran going 2 turns, one time was in the 10 hole, kind of got motoring late. The last time out was rolling and then really had to alter course mid-stretch and had some trouble, and then kind of got rolling late a little. I think there's more there just because of the giant price. I'm going to use that horse.
Makes sense. If I were to ask you, Chappy, to grade those 4 runners you mentioned into A's and B's, or give a top pick, how would you respond to that?
I would probably go my 5, 8 are the A's, and 2. What was the other? 2, 3 would be my B's.
Makes sense. All right, let's proceed here on to the next race, where we get into one that you might be able to do in a one word. Don't think we're going to spend too much time on this one. We'll keep it with you, Chappy. Can Nysos be beat?
I mean, unless no shot. I mean, I have a better chance of going to the moon tomorrow than Nysos getting beat, I think. So, I mean, there's nothing to add except for if you want to fill out the exacta, which I have no idea. But this horse looks like a monster in the making. And it's funny because one of the guys who actually works for me is the regular rider of Nysos, and he was the regular rider of most of the good ones for Baffert. And before the first race, he said that this is the best horse he's been on since Justify.
Wow.
We were just talking about Nysos a little while ago. He was in my office right before this started. But so, yeah,
High praise.
very impressive.
Yeah, that's that might say it all. Duke, will you spend a penny of your money in horizontals against Nysos?
Yeah, just because of the value. I mean, he's going to have 90% of the tickets. So just because of that, I mean, he could stumble out of the gate. Something weird could
racing.
happen. So
Yeah.
yeah. So I mean, yeah, I will. I don't expect him to lose. I think the one horse that it just came out of the blue. I thought the horse was terrible, and then last time, Imagination impressed me with his race last time. I mean, I know he's not probably in Nysos's league, but he improved a ton, and now he gets to Tory, which I mean isn't going to hurt him. I thought he ran a really bang up race last time. He got carried out in the first turn, and I didn't expect him to even run second in that race, and let alone he dueled with that May Mun all the way down the stretch. It showed that he's got some talent, and it surprised the hell out of me. So I'm going to throw him on maybe a ticket or two here and there, but Nysos will be.
He's coming out from the other form line, coming from that May Moon form line. I do think it makes sense. It's hard to conjure a case why the ones that Nysos just beat are going to reverse form. So, I mean, that approach makes sense to me for sure when it comes to the San Felipe. Let's move on to Group 1 action. Group 1, wait a second, which country am I in? Grade 1 action in the Kilroe Mile. We're going a mile on the turf. We've got a field of 9 going postward. This pretty interesting race. Chappy and I talked about it a little bit off air. Duke, we'll throw it to you first for your thoughts on who might be the winner of this one.
Again, I like the favorite in here, morning line favorite Easter. He's going to get plenty of pace to run at with the 8 and the 9 here. Goliad was a must go to the lead type horse, and First Piece is coming out of sprints and he shows speed. So I can't imagine they're going to sit with him. So it looks like there's going to be plenty of pace here, and Easter has just been super, super impressive. He had no business winning last time out. I was there that day, and I couldn't believe that he got, rolling late. He was just flying. I mean, and he got left in the gate. He was wide, and he's just been super impressive since he's gotten into the D'Amato barn, and I see him doing it again. So he's pretty much a single for me.
Decidedly against the flow last time. Any hookups in terms of the vertical exotics, Duke, or is it more of a horizontal race and all about Easter for you?
I think I might try to get a horse like Irideo or Dandy Man Shines in the Exacta. I think either one of those two horses, if Easter rolls by, I think they'll be picking up the pieces late. So 2 with 3-4 underneath, but I don't like the 3 or 4 to win the race particularly.
3 or 4 for underneath. Strong preference for the 2. Chappy, you have a slightly dissenting opinion here, but I know this is a horse you have kind of a thing for. Give us your case for Du Jour in this spot.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with Duke 100%. The 8 and the 9 are going to hook up. Goliad has to have the lead. First Piece is every bit as quick. Easter is clearly the one to beat. I've always had a man crush on Du Jour. And Pete, you were talking, we always have some of those horses that we catch at the wrong time. And I do seem to catch Du Jour at the right time. So I hope I'm correct again. I love the last work on XBTV. The horse is coming in this race very nicely. I think it's going to sit back, make a big run just like Easter. And I'm going to try to single Du Jour here and that be my separator, where as Easter is going to take a lot of money. And hopefully, I can catch – if I get the 3-1, 7-2, I would be thrilled, and I'm going to take my shot here.
Duke, what do you think about that? Do you give Du Jour any count in this spot, or do you think Chappy's smoking something?
No, I mean Du Jour's a talented horse. I don't really like Baffert off layoffs on grass. I just think he trains horses way too hard, and I watched that workout. He worked unbelievable, but he was flying. Like horses like that don't want to be flying. He's a closer, and I think he should have been more like they should have been taking a hold of him and then let him run just the last part instead of let him just roll the whole way. So I mean, I'm not going to tell Baffert how to train horses, but if he has one flaw, it's on turf. And not only that, Du Jour, with given the ground, I'm not sure Du Jour is going to be that type of horse. I think he would prefer firm ground over a course
That could be
good or soft.
Dujour has been the exception to that rule when it comes to Baffert and training, all the way back to his to his 3-year-old year. I remember the only reason I ended up throwing Medina Spirit into the Derby and whatever that year was, 2020 was, when Dujour won on the undercard. I was like, well, clearly Baffert can win anything today, so we're gonna put this in there. But I do think the ground concern is valid, but I also understand where Chappie's coming from. I think that the horse that you and I prefer, Duke Easter, is going to take a ton of money. Maybe Chappie ends up getting some value. We'll see how it plays out in the Grade 1 Kilroe on Saturday. We've got more Grade 1 action up next in the race that gives the day its name, the Santa Anita Handicap. Field of 7 going postward. And I know, Chappie, we talked off air about this one, and you were thinking this was a place where we maybe didn't have to rely on the favorite. Who do you think is going to win the big cap, and why?
Yeah, so in my mind, which is mostly wrong, Newgrange, I always see now when Espinosa's on the horse, he wants to go. And I know Newgrange can sit, but with Victor back on, I think they send. So I think Reincarnate sends as well. And I think this time around, Newgate turns the tables on Newgrange and gets the perfect trip and sits just off. I actually liked Newgate last time quite a bit, but Newgrange just went wire to wire, controlled the race. I think they've switched this time, and Newgate at a nice 4-1 is going to be going to run big. That would be my A horse. A couple Bs, one of them that I think is very interesting. I was telling Pete earlier, and Duke will probably attest to this. He watches a lot of works. I had been waiting forever for Salesman to run on the dirt. And because Salesman might be one of the greatest workhorses ever. The horse works like a monster every time it works on the dirt. And the first couple times it ran here was on the turf. It just baffled my mind. Against Dujour one time, by the way. I know last time out I singled that horse. It got an easy lead, rolled home. That won't be the case. But the last work of Mandela, you always got to watch what he does. The horse relaxed and he sat behind its workmate. I think today Salesman does not go to the lead, takes back. I love Pratt being back on. And I think Salesman is a very interesting horse at 6-1.
5-4 for Chappie in the big cap. Duke, what do you think about that?
I hope, Chappie, I hope you're right this time. I mean, because I'm looking at my page and I got Newgate right on top here. So you're not always wrong, Chappie. Why do you think you're always wrong?
Is your case similar in terms of why you put him on top? You think where he is in the form cycle, the way the race shape? What's your case for Newgate?
I thought Newgate last time, he didn't get the best of trips. He was 4 wide on a day where I think speed and towards the inside did well, not necessarily right on the rail, but inside speed did very, very well. And Newgrange just controlled the pace. I mean, Baffert's he's no dummy. He didn't put Reincarnate in here for no reason. So, I mean, he's going forward. Newgate's coming from behind. Even if you watch that workout, Reincarnate worked out of the gate, you could tell they were just all out. In a send, he ran away from his mate like after about a furlong, so you knew they were trying to get speed into him. So obviously he's got that on his mind. And Chappie, who mentioned Salesman, Richard Mandela's been on fire for 2 weeks. It's been ridiculous. Every horse in his barn is running out lights out. So he was my second choice too. So I'm hoping Chappie's dead on here. I like 5-4.
It's a chorus with the 5 and the 4. Before we proceed from this race, I do want to ask you guys, and we'll start with you, Duke, about Highland Falls, who certainly will be tested for class in this spot coming from those allowance races back east. But it does seem notable Brad Cox sending one over here, and certainly on the morning line gets a lot of respect at 3-1. Do you give this horse much count, or is it maybe a little too much too soon?
I'm not a big fan. That race has been very unproductive, the race he came out of it 2 other than. I'm surprised that Cox would even send that horse out here going from 1.16 to 1.25 miles. I mean, he could win, but at 3-1, I say no way. I mean, he's not on my tickets at 3-1. If he was 10-1, I might have him on as a C or something because he's got figures that are sort of fit. But I mean, that's a big jump in class for me, to other than at Fairgrounds to to this race. I think he's a little bit outclassed.
I'm skeptical as well. Chappy, what do you think of Highland Falls?
I'm skeptical too. I was going to actually ask Duke about another horse real quick, just before we moved on, if you don't mind.
No, of course.
Duke, you watch a lot of the XBTV works. Subsandador worked very well before that long layoff and has worked very well again, right? And now is going to get overlooked and hadn't ran in a long time, needed that last race. Do you think that horse is a little sneaky in here?
I bet him last time. I thought he was I thought he was a single last time because I think we even talked about his work.
Yeah.
I talked how good he worked. And he's kind of a little horse, if I remember right. He's not that big. So I'm not sure the 1.25 miles is really going to be up his alley, but again, he'd be like a seed horse too. 5 would be A, Salesman would be B, and then like the 2, 3, and 6 would be Season. I'm pitching New Grange. I won't have him on anything, and I won't have Reincarnate on anything either.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. I was concerned about the distance for Subsandador as well. Would be, I think, an interesting sneaky long shot, Chappy, like at a shorter distance type race, but that extra variable makes me a little bit cynical personally. Let's talk about this 9th race, boys. Fillies and mares in an allowance. We're going 6.5, and it's the proper 6.5. We're going down the hill, which we talked about before. We've got an oversubscribed field in this spot. Chappy, I know you were interested in this one. Can we pull us a price in this 9th race at Santa Anita on Sunday?
To me, I'm going to spread here, Duke. Like an interesting race is if you go back and look at Summer Lake, I know the horse got an easy lead, but looked very impressive. But that was also with Dettori on board, and he got aggressive once again. Yet Dettori jumps off and goes to a Baltus horse who's 12-1 in the morning line, who hasn't ran since last July. And so just for that reason alone, I think that horse is a use. I think the Summer Lake as well, even with Antonio Frisu, who's been very good jumping aboard, is a use. Another horse I thought had some upside was number 5, Vengaza. We talked about Mandela being hot. The horse might have needed his last race. You don't often see Mandela after winning a maiden race go straight into a grade 2. So obviously I think he has some high expectations of this horse. I'm kind of all over the place in here. So I'm going to use as many as I can because I'm going to go short early in the sequence. I don't have a standout. This looks ripe for a price here.
I wrote down 3, 11, and 5 for you, Chappy, in the notes I'm going to send around to the In the Money Plus people. Any that you want to number check as backups / hookups in here?
I mean, let's throw the 8 in for good measure. So 3, 5, 8, 11.
All right, we'll see if one of those 4 can get the job done. Duke, how about you? Do you agree with Chappy that this is an open race where we might be able to find a price?
Yeah, I think so. We talked about this Dettori factor on the hill. I can't leave that one out. I know he's off a long layoff, but I think Baltus won with a similar type horse the other day. Didn't he, in a stake race where he was coming off mile races and ran down the hill and
yes,
off a layoff? Didn't have Dettori, I don't believe, but anyway, I'm definitely including Pleasant Wave to 3. There's no way I could keep that one out. Venganza had is the Red Hot Mandela, and I had that horse having a horrible trip 2 back, and then came back once off the layoff going 6. Now gets 6.5. I got to use that one. Don't You Forget's a very consistent horse. I think might be a tight, just a tad bit overmatched, maybe because it's a Calbred, but I don't know. I wouldn't toss it. Get the Money has some interesting breeding that could possibly make that horse, a chance. It's off another one off a long layoff, which I don't particularly like, but has a chance. Summer Lake, you mentioned, is the speed, but I think I'll lean on the 3 and 5 as my top 2, and then I'll have a big spread, as my underneath horses, including the 8, 10, 11. Probably I might even include the 2 in there, maybe ridiculous long shot.
What's the angle on Sunshine Babe for you in this spot? What are you seeing that appeals?
It's just something about those horses that run a mile. I don't know what it is about the milers that go down the hill. They just seem to always run well. I'm not sure. I'm not sure what the case is of why it happens, but she'll be coming from, way back. But yeah, if there's given the ground and they come back to the field, that would be one I might think could do it. But I'm leaning on the 5 as my top choice, even though it's a tough race.
5 and 3 on the top line for Duke. To your point about Sunshine Babe, has a 4th at 13-1 and a 3rd at 30-1 going down the hill in those PPs. So certainly for your vertical players out there, I don't think I'd be too keen to leave that one out. It's going to be a name your price type of situation, I think, for her in this spot with so many other ways to go. We close things out with more graded stakes action in the form of the Buena Vista for fillies and mares 4 and up going a mile, and a field of 11 going postward. Duke, when it comes to this, pick 6 at Santa Anita on Sunday. How are we going to get paid?
Well, I tell you one thing, Frankie Dettori better have a good day if I'm going to do well, because I like the 11. I like Moofy. I don't usually like 11 posts going a mile, but this horse has had some terrible trips last 2 starts. Even at Turfway, he had a terrible trip, and then last time got super rank and with Kimura and still ran second. I think probably was best in that race. And a lot of these horses are coming out of that race. So I like the 11 Moofy. My second choice would be Ruby Nell, who's an interesting horse. She sometimes she runs off, sometimes she doesn't. It's like you don't know what style she's going to take on this day, but she kind of gets hurt a little bit by the 5 being in there, Kissed by Fire, who's got a ton of speed sprinting. So if she's going to win, she's going to have to sit today, which worries me a little bit. And then I probably close out with Closing Remarks as my third choice. She just always puts in a good run, and it seems like she's always around there. So I was 11, 5, 8 be my 3 there.
11, 6, 8, I think, with Ruby Nell.
I'm sorry, yeah, 11, 6, 8. Sorry.
Yeah, Ruby Nell last time I thought it was an interesting race. I really liked her in there, and I thought it was one of those rip up your tickets out of the gate when she didn't break. And then after not breaking, Dettori kind of grabbed her, which I thought was interesting. And I thought it was crazy at the time, but ended up running 3rd, beaten less than 2. I don't know. Maybe she learned something. Maybe she learned a little bit about how to rate. Look, I'm not super excited at 7-2, but no. She is one I do think that last race was a little bit better than it looked, because it could have been a complete disaster after she didn't break with Alacrity that day and, lost to the super game Didia in that spot, who's, obviously nowhere to be found in this race. So that's an interesting one worth underlining a little bit. Chappy, how about you? How do you want to close this thing out?
I've always been a huge Ruby Nell fan, but I am going to toss Ruby Nell today. I do think that Ruby Nell, like Duke said, kind of crazy sometimes, and Maldonado's on board. There's going to be other speed. I just got the way the pace is playing out in my head, I think it's going to set up for a closer. My top pick actually is Bella Bell. I loved Bella Bell last time out as lone speed, but second off the layoff, this horse does not need the lead whatsoever, and I think she's very talented, is going to get a terrific trip. My second play is Moofy, who Duke said I don't love the 11 hole, but just should get a good trip, should be flying late. Dettori back aboard. I just think it sets up for somebody off the pace. That being said, my third choice is Closing Remarks, who, last time out just looked like, I don't know. I love her, and I did not like her last time out. And but this race sets up well for her late kick as well. So I'm 4, 11, 8 in that order.
Great stuff, boys. So good to talk to you about these races. Want to remind folks again, we've got contests Saturday at Santa Anita, Gulfstream, the Ultimate Betting Challenge Sunday, the Big Cap Challenge at Santa Anita. Preakness Future wager as well this weekend. That closes Saturday at 8 p.m. If you want to learn more about the contest, go to expressbet.com/tournaments. Duke, you going to throw your hat in the ring in either of these contests this weekend? Have you decided yet?
I didn't even know about the one at Santa Anita. Is that a new one?
Last second, because once they moved Saturday to Sunday, they decided to according to the written rules of UBC, those races had to be run on Saturday, so they invented a new one for the rescheduled Sunday, which I think is smart and might be interesting because you might be able to get involved where a lot of people don't even know what's going on.
Is it on track only?
No, I think it's on track and through ExpressBet.
Okay.
So,
yeah, I might. I didn't even know anything about it, so that's enticing for this card. For sure.
We got room for you, Duke, if you want to come out. I'll find a spot.
Yeah, Chappy will sort you out.
Yeah. I got tickets for you. You're good.
I won't be in Suite 17 with James Henry.
No.
The man in black, always always a feature on these airwaves. Great seeing him out there, and definitely somebody who is liable to play in any contest. A former Horse Players World Series champion, James Henry, aka the man in black. All right, boys, I'll leave you to it. Great getting a chance to chat with you on this show. Hopefully, folks will follow along and join in on this Preakness Future wager as well as the contest. Once again, the URL, if you want to get involved, expressbet.com/tournaments. For Duke Matties, for Jeff Chappy Chapman, I'm Peter Thomas Fornatow. May you win all your photos.